Hi, everybody. It's Mallory from the Self Sewn Wardrobe, and this is the start of a series that I'm going to be doing called Stabilizer Sundays. And part of the reason I'm doing this, what it links up into, is the SewHere Box that we are selling or have sold. There are 2 left. 2. So we only do 100. So if you're watching this and you want a SewHere Box, you need to go to sewhere.com/box. You need to order one and be one of the last 2 people to get it. And the boxes might be shipping just a little later than expected. We were saying mid-October, but the really cool swag item that we're waiting on is taking a little longer to ship. So I've got boxes and boxes of everything else here waiting to be, I have them like sealed so that nothing gets misplaced or anything, but waiting to be packed up. However, that one swag item that is so cool, I'm so excited about it. And it's what I like to keep a surprise in the box. But anyway, it's taking a little longer. Sorry about that, but might take a little longer. Anyway, the reason that I'm doing this series on stabilizers is because in the SewHere Box, you are getting a stabilizer sampler pack from Sulky. And we are going to talk today about stabilizers, and why I think it's so important to talk about them in this group is that stabilizers are generally marketed and developed for machine embroidery. Fred says, "Good morning. I might roll out of bed for this." You don't have to get out of bed. I wouldn't. Right there with your phone. Just if you need a stand, you need one of those stands so you can just have the phone in your face. Okay, so I'll hold this back up. The stabilizer sampler pack that's coming. And if you are like Fred in Canada or you're somewhere else and you're not in the US, maybe you can't find Sulky products, this is still going to be a really good introduction for you to stabilizers. So let's talk about stabilizers and why they're different from interfacings. So interfacing products over, in garment sewing land, they are generally something that is meant to stay in the garment forever. So you'll find fusible interfacing, sew-in interfacing. Some of these interfacing products are, what do I want to say? They're just that. They're products. They're not fabrics, okay? They are like non-woven. Some of them stretch, or you will find like knitted interfacing or woven interfacing, and they are meant to give your project body or more stability or something like that. And you know that ZD and I are not big fans, hi Denise, of interfacing products. And in the SewHere box that you're getting, you're going to see what we prefer to use instead of those interfacings. You're going to get cotton organdy, which is one of our preferred interfacings for woven fabrics, and you're going to get power shaper net, which beyond it's just, uses as a fabric, we also use it as an interfacing when we interface knit garments in areas that still need to stretch. Okay, so then you get interfacing products, which aren't, made in the same way fabrics are made. They're just not as durable or long-lasting as actual fabrics, okay? And if you fuse them on, which, I'll talk to you about how I like fusible things sometimes. If you fuse them on, sometimes that fusing can come away. It can degrade over time as it gets heated and cooled when you wear and care for it. It can become crinkly. Even if you sew it into the seams, you will find that it can pull away because it's just not as durable. That's not the case for something like cotton organdy or just like another layer of fabric. It's going to wear like the fabric on, that you have actually sewn with. So what actually comes into our sewing lives that is similar to an interfacing product is embroidery stabilizers. And ZD and I used to be sewing machine dealers, okay? So we used to we used to sell baby lock machines, and we had to, be all things to all people. We had to help people with their sergers, had to help people with their sewing machines, had to help people with their embroidery machines. We had to go install long-arm quilters in people's homes, and then we had to help everyone with whatever project they wanted to do on their machines that they bought from us. So like if they wanted to do home dec, if they wanted to do whatever. Anyway, so got a lot of experience with machine embroidery. And we found that this helped us a lot when we were actually garment sewing. So one thing that we have mentioned before is when you are making buttonholes on your sewing machine, we recommend using a tearaway stabilizer. And this is where we're going to start off with the basics this week, and next week we'll get into some more specifics. So let's talk about stabilizers and how they are named. Stabilizers are named by how they adhere to the fabric and how they are taken away from the fabric. So you will see something called let's see, fuse, okay, Sulky cutaway stabilizers, and there's a fuse and stitch. Okay, so what this tells us about this stabilizer is it is a cutaway stabilizer, but you can fuse it. And so you'll see that Sulky has color-coded their stabilizers, actually based on how they're taken away. Okay, so how they're removed. So you'll see cutaway, you'll see tear away, wash away, and heat away. Okay, so they've categorized them by how they are taken away from the fabric. And then within the names of those, you will see things about how they are adhered to the fabric. So a cutaway stabilizer is a stabilizer that will leave something behind forever. In embroidery land, generally cutaways are used on knit fabrics, on a stretchy fabric. So you see the hoodie I'm wearing is stretchy. If I want to embroider Mallory on it, okay, I have to create an area of my stretchy hoodie that will never stretch while it is being stitched, and then that will never stretch after it has been stitched. So I never want this to stretch, because if I embroider on it and then I go like this, I will pop all of the stitches. So that cutaway would be put on the back of the fabric. I would embroider, and then I would trim very close to my lettering that says Mallory. And a layer of that cutaway would be left underneath this, okay? And it would stabilize the stitches forever. But it would be cut really close, okay? And it make it softer with washing, which we actually want, but which is a reality that people who maybe like peddle cheaper interfacings don't want you to think about. Like, I don't want to put in something in my shirt collar that's going to like soften, kind of shrink away over time. Yet that is what will happen with the stabilizer, and that's cool. Okay, so those are cutaways, but a cutaway can also be useful if it's going to be on something that's not like close to the body and you just want to add some stability. I've seen people who just, like if they get a bunch of cutaway for something, they'll, a huge bolt of it, and they'll just use it on all the duffel bags they're, stitching on or whatever. And it can leave a little bit more heft there. Hi, Marnie. Good to see you. Next, we go to tearaways. Now, tearaways are what we would suggest for embroidering on wovens. So a tearaway, you would adhere it to your fabric in the way that's appropriate. And then you'd stitch, and then you support your stitches very nicely, and you tear away the stabilizer. And almost all of that stabilizer is going to be gone. That's what we recommend for buttonholes. And I have a 2,500 word blog post on buttonholes. I'll try to link to that in the comments, and it's also a podcast. And actually, what's funny is a personal friend on Facebook asked me, she said, can I hire you to sew some buttonholes on a shirt for me? Because my machine just won't do buttonholes. And my first reaction is like, well, hell no, I won't, no. Like, I don't really sew for other people. I like to sew for myself. I like to teach you guys. And so anyway, I said, why don't you check out this blog post? And the blog post really helped her. And one of the key ingredients in that blog post is using tearaway stabilizer under your buttonholes. So you're going to, interface the placket of that button-up shirt or the, whatever you're doing. You're going to do whatever you're supposed to do on your pair of jeans on the waistband. But no matter what, you're going to put that tearaway stabilizer behind there while you're doing your buttonholes, and you're going to tear it away, and it's going to go completely away. This is okay on a woven. All right. And if I were to embroider on my woven shirt, I don't have to worry about it stretching after I take all of the stabilizer away. Okay. So that's why that's okay that it completely goes away. And that's why, and it's meant to tear away too. Okay. So if you don't have these tear away, if you don't like have this particular product, these stabilizers, and you want to use a tear away, we don't recommend tissue paper. Okay. So we're not big fans of tissue paper. Tissue paper is very fibrous and can kind of get pushed down in your machine. Printer paper, though, tears easily. When the needle punctures it, it's not like there's a bunch of lint going everywhere. And, will it dull your needle? Everything dulls your needle. You need to be changing your needle anyway. I've never been like, disappointed. But, the stabilizers are a little better than just printer paper. But printer paper, receipt tape, if that's something you have laying around. I might have a lot of it laying around. Or magazine paper, but we're actually not big fans of tissue paper. And tissue paper doesn't tear away as well when it's perforated. It kind of lollygags around and those fibers kind of hang on. So anyway, tear away is another thing that you can have. Okay, and then the other two, the wash away and the heat away. In garment sewing, those can also be used, to give body to a garment, but I find myself using tear away more often, but those can be useful as toppings. If you put a wash away stabilizer on top of your buttonhole fabric and make buttonholes, you are going to lay down the fibers of your garment, stitch that buttonhole, and you're going to get one of the nicest buttonholes that you've ever gotten. But we really want all that stuff to go away on top, so we would use a wash away or a heat away. Okay, so I've gone through the 4 ways that stabilizers are removed: cut away, tear away, wash away, and heat away. Okay, so next let's talk about how they can be adhered to the fabric. So there are a few ways to do this, and this all depends on the type of fabric you're using, on what you got on hand, and the first is no adherent method. Okay, so it's a tear away stabilizer. It's a roll of a paper-like substance, and you can just pop it under your, garment that you're going to do buttonholes on, okay? Or a cutaway that just has no adhering, to it, okay? And that can be fine. However, I recommend not purchasing those. I'd recommend getting a fusible. So if someone came into our store and they bought an embroidery machine, and I would be so straight up with people, I was a really good machine salesman, if I do say so myself. So you're going to get this embroidery machine, but you are going to spend, I don't know, $100 on stabilizer before you leave here, and it's going to last you quite a while, but you need to have these 3 or 4 products at home. And I would say you need a tear away because that's what you're going to use on almost everything. Just get a fusible one. Even if you don't use the fusible, you've got it on hand and you don't have a non-fusible when you want a fusible. So a fusible stabilizer has a layer of glue on it that is activated by an iron, okay? Or some kind of heat source or something like that. A press, something. And that is so useful. I fuse in embroidery land like whenever I can, because if you can lay down your fabric and it's not stretched out, it's not distorted, and then you can lay your stabilizer on and fuse it, then you've preserved that fabric structure so well for when you go to do something crazy on it, like embroidery or, I don't know, you're going to do some like free motion embroidery. You're going to do something crazy that could distort your fabric, but you have preserved the structure of the fabric with the fusible. So I really, really love that. So I keep fusibles on hand. Even then, when I go to do my buttonholes on my shirt placket, I don't need to fuse that on. It's not, it's not like it's going to, move around and be crazy. It's an interfaced placket that I have interfaced with cotton organdy probably, not an interfacing product. And then I just lay that under there. I'm not using the fusible part, but I'm not going to freak out about it, okay? They're slightly more expensive, not, it's a negligible amount, just get the fusible, okay? And that's the same, for a cutaway if I feel like I need to fuse it. And then when you remove that, a lot of times the glue is so light that it's not like you have to reheat it in order to get it off. Okay, it will just tear away and generally not leave any residue. Okay, the glue layer was so light and designed in such a way that they knew you're going to be taking it away after. It's not a permanent thing, that you just tear that away. So I would not fuse something that has a big texture to it. Like I don't fuse stabilizer on the back of my terry cloth towels before I embroider them, because you are tearing away, you are pulling that away, and you don't want to tear, you don't want to distort those loops. So there are, instances where I don't do that. And so anyway, fusing is the first way that I've talked about to adhere those stabilizers. And then the other way to do that is actually a wet. Okay, so let's see, is there do they have a wet and, I don't know, everybody names them differently, wet and stick, something like that, but it'll be an adhesive on there that you can actually get wet, and then you can stick your project on. And that's kind of cool because you can wet it in certain places and then just stick your project down. You can wet the whole thing. I've never been a huge fan of those. I'm always like kind of going for the fusible, but sometimes you can't iron your projects, right? Like it's a fabric that will not stand the heat needed to activate the glue on a fusible. So keep that in mind. So those wet and sticks can be good. And then there are stabilizers that actually have a what do I want to say? They have a sticky layer on them. And here, let me get this. This is Sticky Plus. There we go. Sulky Sticky Plus stabilizer. And so this stabilizer, actually, you roll it out, and before you put your thing on it, whatever you're going to do, you peel away this layer, and right here is sticky. And it's not too sticky. It's not crazy sticky. And I really do feel like Sulky, what do I want to say? Like, I know the Sulky people, I've known them for a long time, and like I can't remember what exactly his title is. Like the CEO of Sulky would always be at our Baby Lock Tech conference that we'd go to, since we had to go to it as dealers. And they really listen when they are developing their projects. And this is such a nice, look, okay, this is such a flexible product, okay? It's not too stiff. And so it's not like you're putting something, that is really going to, distort your fabric. And so if you need something that's going to, if you want to stick a strip of stabilizer on the back of your buttonholes, that can be really nice. So this is Sulky Sticky Plus. And so it is a tearaway stabilizer that you adhere to the fabric with a pre-glued thing. And isn't it cool that it has a grid on it? Thanks, Sulky. Thank you. I'd like grids on everything. So that is another way that you can adhere the stabilizer. Okay. Oh, I didn't talk about another way to take off the stabilizer. So there are two more ways to take off the stabilizer. There's wash away and heat away. Okay, so wash away, get it wet, goes away. Heat away, you heat it, and it goes away. And you're like, what? And I will do a demo of this, because when I first heard about this, I was like, that sounds like a mess. Well, I'm going to touch that with my iron, and like all hell's going to break loose, and everything's going to get sticky, and I'm going to have like a plastic weird, thing going on my iron. No, it just goes away. And it's really neat. I really like that. I really enjoy the heat aways, actually. And then there are different weights of like all of these stabilizers. So there are super heavyweight cutaways. I mean, it's like they feel like a cardstock almost, okay? And then there are lighter weight cutaways, which feel nice when you embroider on a knit. And then there are super heavy tearaways, which are meant to really support a stitch heavy design, So I mean, same with the cutaways, but that's one reason that they're so heavy. Like, man, sometimes you look back at your life and like, why did I do that thing? One time, I think I was like 16, somebody brought in this design that they wanted digitized, and it was like 5 lizards bowling. I mean, it was super intense to digitize. I think I did it for $25. Like, what was I thinking? Anyway, those really, if you see a machine embroidery design that's like really intense, you're going to want a heavier weight of stabilizer to really stand up to all that punching, okay? The super heavy ones probably aren't as applicable to us in garment sewing because we're never, it's, you know, when you get to that buildup of stitches, then you're over in embroidery land, okay? You know, you're not top stitching a hem or doing a buttonhole or something like that, or doing a collar or whatever. So anyway, there are different weights of all these, and the wash away stabilizers are things that people who do freestanding lace will use. So that is when you hoop up this. It's like you're hooping up plastic sheeting, okay? It's rather thick, and your machine stitches out a lace design that then when you wash away the stabilizer, it is lace. It is freestanding lace. So those are the really heavy washaways. And then the lighter weight washaways are used for a topping, like on a terry cloth towel. And if you embroider, or if you Google how to embroider a terry cloth towel, I come up, and you will see where I'm using like that wash away stabilizer on top, and I talked about using that on top of buttonholes, and you can use it on top of buttonholes if you're doing fabric that has like a pile or a bit of a texture or any kind of knit, and it just helps those fibers lay down underneath the buttonhole while you are stitching it. And it's also another way to let like your machine kind of glide over your fabric, sort of like the tearaway allows the feed dogs to move the garment very easily while you are stitching it. So that is your intro to stabilizers. How long is this video? 21 minutes. I haven't even talked to you about like a specific stabilizer, but that's what I'll be doing next Sunday. On the next Stabilizer Sunday is I'm going to go into specifically each stabilizer from the different categories and show you how to use it. Okay, so that will that'll be very helpful when your SewHere box does come. You can, reference that video. You can say, oh, a time has come when I believe that I would like to use this stabilizer. Okay, and then you can decide if this is something that you'd like to order like a roll of. Oh, this is kind of interesting. Stitch and seal. Okay, so this is I'll just read the description. I don't know why I should just save this for another video, but reseals the back of waterproof fabric after machine embroidery. Embroider on waterproof or water repellent fabrics without compromising their waterproof properties. Just apply stitch and seal to the back of your embroidery, and water and moisture will not penetrate the fabric through the tiny embroidery needle punctures. So if you embroider on something like a lunchbox or like a duffel bag or something like that, there you go. Here is your stitch and seal that you can do. So I'll try to, actually I think I have a lunchbox that I bought like when we owned the shop. It's like almost 3 years ago. And I was planning on demoing this with it, so hopefully I still have it. So this is an itty bitty little sample of this, but most of the samples are more like 8.5 by 11. They fit in this nice little thing here. Here's the heat away film. So you're going to get a chance to look over these. And boy, have I seen a lot of stabilizer in my life. I mean, as an embroidery machine dealer, there are whole companies, based on stabilizer and coming up with stabilizers to make things work. Make designs work, make fabrics work, make the machines work better, make everybody's life easier. And, the creativity of the business is very inspiring, but it also makes things pretty darn confusing. So, people want to be able to embroider on anything from a Carhartt jacket to a satin gown, and so what kind of support do we need to be giving those garments when we're putting them under an embroidery machine? And that is where all of this, development has come from. So anyway, you'll learn a few things about machine embroidery that maybe you don't, you might not use right away if you don't have a machine that does machine embroidery, but I will be relating it back to garment sewing as well. So anyway, thank you all so much for watching. I can't wait to do the next Stabilizer Sunday. I think I can go schedule it right now. And you can click on the little button that says like get reminder, so that you are reminded at same time next Sunday. It's 10 a.m. Central Time. That's Chicago time. So just like look up what time it is in Chicago when it's your time in your land. And that is what time it is. Okay. All right, everybody. Have a lovely day. So long and so happy.